Great, we are recording. Thank you all for coming. Oh, should I? I can I can stop this and restart it if you need to erase anything. All good? Okay, great. Um, great. Thanks everyone for coming. Um, I guess if no one has an agenda bash to the did everyone get a chance to read the email from last night?
Yes.
And I can find it. If no one has an agenda bash, I suggest we dive right in, or that you mention it. All right, so I guess let's go over the TPAC plans then. So first off, our scheduled slot for the Multicast community group. That'll be at I put a link in there. It's I'm hoping to get a few new people to be interested in joining. I think that'll be relatively likely, but I'm not sure exactly what to expect. So maybe we'll have a few new people coming in with some interest. I'm aiming to like my ideal here would be to get some development work lined up for the for experimenting uh, with the quick library. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get to that since we discussed it 2 months ago. But I did put up that demo video and do some of the other things I had hoped to do. So what we'll probably do, or what I'll plan for in the interest of having new people around, will be a little bit of intro, and then get into what the work will be ongoing that we'll need to solve before this can be you know integrated into a browser and rolled out. I'll probably try to give an overview of the security situation and what would be a little bit of the useful work there, and um, I guess yeah. Any other suggestions that I should fold in there? Anyone want to take some of the speaking time? Uh, Anything you want to present, perhaps, or talk about? If not, that's fine. I can just drive it. I have plenty to say. um,
I think that's good. I think my only question would be like, are there particular people that we want to invite specifically to join? Um, or is, I mean, I think you will get, a number of people who are curious, TPAC being, kind of open to lots of, all the W3C members. So you may well get, people who have maybe not familiar so far with what we're doing and are curious. So I think, yeah, having that introductory material is good. Um, but I'm also thinking, yeah, whether there are other people that we should specifically try to bring along.
yeah, that's a good question. I guess I've been thinking in terms of categories of people. Some of the individual people I would love to have, I know are super busy, but here I'm thinking of so like Harald Alvestrand has been um, supportive of this work before, and obviously has hugely important experience in with the WebRTC work and um, you know just navigating the standards bodies in general. There were a few people at the last IETF Barboff that seemed potentially interested, but I'm not sure how much overlap there was with W3C adjacent folks. I guess I'd like to get more sort of what working you know people who will tell me what I'm doing wrong in the browser implementations and stuff, and who will dig in on that and maybe help correct it even. I think I got a little bit of feedback on that, but I have not put as much work into that since kind of kicking it off that that I would like to as what I would like to have done. I would like to end up with more progress on that front. But then there's also just
Yeah.
the getting the basics of the networking working.
Yeah, I think on that front, it may be the same people that you've already talked to through the Blink Dev um, email
Yeah,
thread. Um,
maybe some Googlers, like if there's people at Google who can tell me where I'm like gonna bump into a brick wall on the Chromium side, or alternately like someone embedded in Firefox more that would move the whole project over, or that would be interested in moving the whole project over and starting to help with that. I don't really care where it gets started, but some kind of a like mentor in the browser world, I think would be helpful. I've just been kind of winging it, and when we try and check this thing in, it's going to be a big mess. It
So what
was
have we got
left.
at the moment? There's you and another guy, Jake, at Akamai working on this in terms of development, working on it.
In terms of development, it's well, so there have been a few other people involved from time to time at Akamai. But yeah, I'm the only one on it right now. Really,
Okay.
I occasionally get some of their free time involved,
And we've got a lot
but
of
they
people who have said this looks interesting and we'd like to keep an eye on it, but not too many people leaping forward to open a terminal editor and start hacking away.
yeah, I did have a group briefly, but they got reassigned. I'm still working on getting another group. We'll see if that pans out. I should find that out this month. But
And in
it's
terms of feedback and so on from um, other people outside your organization, are you getting much of that at the moment? That's really what we're talking about, I guess, is you've not got a lot of feedback from other IATF and W3C people.
yeah, from IETF I got a bit. I have a recording online of the Barboff. There were some 20 to maybe almost 30 uh I think I want to say 26-ish participants at a Barboff meeting I had at the last IETF. People seemed, yeah, supportive, but not going and saying, "Hey, I want to write some of the code on this," which I
Know
don't
that
see a
look.
whole lot of. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean, there was
wondered if that was how this was going to roll, that a lot of people would turn up for the initial thing to see, hey, what are they doing? And then fade away. Unfortunately, I faded away myself a little bit there. I'm afraid I've not been terribly well for some time. So I'm quite enthusiastic, but I've got to manage my own energy levels. I unfortunately contracted COVID last year, and yeah, what I didn't realize is sometimes it takes quite a long time to recover, and in this case, 18 months. I'm still not quite back on my feet, but I seem to be getting there. So, and I've got my own project which has a lot of catching up to do at the moment.
Sure.
Fortunately, there's a little bit of overlap between my project and yours, and I'm trying to find where I might be able to actually open that terminal editor and give you a bit of a hand. It's
so
just
IPv6,
difficult.
right? It was,
yeah, IPv6 multicast and transitional tunneling and things.
So
the
Tim,
bit that I think got your interest before was that I had a little chat app that I built that used WebSockets and things and multicast in the background, and maybe there's something we can do with that. If it can do native multicast, then it can throw away the WebSocket and start talking directly to the network, which would be nice.
welcome. I see we have a new participant. I just wanted to meet. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Is that Michiel?
I'm Michiel in Dutch, but you can say Michael or Mike, it's fine.
Great. Thank you for joining. I just wanted to make sure you're aware we're recording. If you have anything you'd like redacted, then I'll cut it out afterwards.
No, it's no problem.
Posting. So just wanted to make sure that's on your radar. Thank you for joining and welcome. Let's see. So back to IPv6. This is Tim Chone is the first one who asked for this, and that I would say was just within the last 2 weeks. We were talking about so they're standing up some AMT relays and some beer forwarding capabilities in the Giant network. That was a little bit later in the email. I had a thread to a link to the discussion thread about about an IETF hackathon upcoming. I believe that would be I forget exactly when that is. Early November, I think. Possibly the week before, with some overlap.
So the support's IPv4 only at the moment, or?
As I understand it, the Giant implementation, which is a new implementation, was written to support IP4 and 6. The AMT relay and gateway work in the so there's two places. There's the in my Grumpy Old Troll repos in GitHub. There's AMT Relay D and the AMT Gateway. Those both I did put it in IP6 support a couple of years back, and ran it once in lab, and it worked fine-ish. So I think that's the status on that. I don't have any actual relays running yet. It's one of the things that's been on my list. I would love to get one up for I was hoping to get one up for Tim and you to send some of that same kind of VLC traffic that you can if you can get it shipped to your end device by using these the gateway, then you would in theory should be able to watch it on VLC. And it's a useful test to play with when you're trying to work on something. And then the browser work that we're proposing for this next step would be to also try to render that. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but in theory, like whatever VLC is doing to play that should be pretty similar to what Web Codex is doing. And I'm not sure if it'll be pickier on the codex if there's like malformatted things or stuff not missing packets or anything. If it is, then it might not play very well. But if it's not, then maybe we can get some frames rendered. Kind of what we're aiming to do in this upcoming hackathon, I think. And I've also got the sort of the the stuff I showed in the demo video, which is based on our Akamai has a product that's used as a TV service inside a walled garden multicast deployment in ISPs, and we ported that into WebAssembly, the receiver side of that into WebAssembly, and that was what was running on top of the browser for that demo video. If you got a chance to see it, and so that's a reliable transport that's it's like rebuilding the segments out of the data that it got over multicast, and then feeding in segments that were transferred. I think they are checksum and checked before feeding them in, and then there's a unicast fallback if it needed that. So that's what was running for that piece. That code is not, unfortunately, public, so it's a sort of barrier to use. But which is why we're doing the VLC basically, for now at least. And I think when we get to the quick implementation, then that will end up being kind of the same way, where inside the quick library, as I understand it, you're going to be sending segments. There's a sort of reliable transport that will rebuild the segment on the other side, and then you feed the segment into MSE, I think, to play that. So that's and in theory, that might be possible to make it like inside the XHR instead of a web transport like API, where we've got a read stream, a readable stream that we're reading, all the packet payloads out of. Yeah, but that work is still that'll be a relatively different path inside the implementation. So we'll see what that looks like. And I would like to get it so that datagrams would come through a similar kind of readable stream path that could be used in the same way in the quick implementation as well. So I don't know how feasible that will be, but as I understood it from the last discussion, that's not there yet in the NGHQ. I think that was the name of it.
Yeah, there's no datagram supporting that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I forgot what your question is. Did we cover it?
Yeah, essentially that it's mainly IPv4 support at the moment was the original question, but that's fine. This is all good info for me too.
If I manage to get a V6 relay up in the next week, I anticipate there might be a little bit of like my launching scripts for bringing up a sort of VLC compatible thing. I'm not sure they'll work with IP6. We'll have to see. Actually, I'm pretty confident they don't, but it might not be hard to add them because I think the AWS instances will have IP6 by default, or at least allow you to turn it on easily. So it probably won't be too hard to get it running. And as soon as that's there, then I'll send out an update. But yeah, now that a couple more people are looking at it, then it's the second request I've had to actually run it that way. So so I'd like to get that up.
Our approach with LibreCast is basically V6 only, and the idea is, given that multicast is not that widely supported, that we'd need to tunnel to get multicast working, then you may as well tunnel and get V6 multicast as opposed to just V4. So everything we do is built around that, and if there was only V4 multicast available, then we'd still tunnel just to get V6 going. But, yeah, it's just some of the things we're doing require V6 only multicast things, like the groups and so on. In fact, you've got 112 bits for group addresses. We use that, so we can't really fake that with V4.
In SSM,
cool.
I think In SSM, I think you only have 31 bits. I'm not sure why, but they put the group.
If you're embedding the address in there, then you lose some bits. Yeah.
No, I mean as I recall, the part that's assigned to source specific multicast is the I think it's just inside a /96, and the /96 has the top bit reserved, if I remember right. So take a look at that. I can find you the reference if I. But I remember seeing that. I think it was in maybe it'd be the one in.
There are some later RFCs that start chewing away on bits and taking them up for different purposes. But yeah, you can do SSM with the 412, but I don't know if all the later modes support that.
412? What? Oh, the one.
Sorry, 112.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. This was in. I'll try and find the reference and we'll sort it out after. Yeah, here it is. It's in the IANA considerations of 46 RFC 4607. The range is the range for SSM is in FF3X colon 4000 1 to 7 FFF colon FFFF. I think that's the latest, but yeah, if you have another one, you know, point me to that reference. And okay, so oh, and we're doing SSM because ASM has been deprecated for interdomain. So I'm restricting any of my interest to SSM multicast, just for. I can get you that reference too, but that's one of the more recent.
Yeah, I sadly saw that come out last year, but it seems to be an acknowledgement that ASM in its current form doesn't really work into domain particularly well. So
yeah, it doesn't. The if you ever want to read the sad story, take a look at RFC 4611 for MSDP. I've never seen such a discouraged looking intro section. Talked about how you couldn't reach consensus, etc. It was bad. Hey Kyle.
Sorry, I had a conflicting meeting.
No worries. Let's see. We were just about to get back on track. We had a quick discussion about IP6. Actually, that's part of bringing us on track overall, I think. So, all good. Let's see. But I'll send out an update if I bring up a V6 relay and some V6 traffic, or maybe I should say some V6 traffic. Would you use the V4 tunnel if you had a V4 tunnel for V6 traffic, or like, are you more worried about the traffic or about the tunnel being V6, or you want?
Well, the multicast we use is IPv6 only. So if IPv4 multicast is available, we wouldn't use it. We'd tunnel. That's all I was saying there. So IPv4 unicast is sufficient because we just use it to tunnel and get to some real multicast.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm not sure how you would tunnel it if the group address that's being sent. You could use MNAT. We actually do some of that. Although this one also I don't think supports. Maybe we'll take that offline. It's a little bit sideways for the web development stuff. But yeah, we do want V6 to work in the browser, so in theory it should. I would love to try it out. All right, so let's see. I don't know whether we'll get the slotted web transport. I also just found out this morning the slot in second screen. They put me down for an hour. I'm not sure why. But
well, you'll get a lot of questions, maybe.
Maybe. The overlap with second screen, I wasn't too sure about. Because I'm not sure how applicable multicast is going to be for the second screen use cases, as far as I could see. And that's mostly.
I was going to ask that question because I've been in that group for a while, and the use cases they have are largely around, launching video streams or launching websites on a second screen device. So you can, and it's largely designed around discovery of devices on your local network. But there is a protocol for streaming media between devices. So yeah, I think it's great that you've got their attention. That sounds really positive. Oh yeah, but I was kind of wondering what kind of more specifically what the potential collaboration with them might be.
Yeah, so the first potential collaboration, the one that was most interesting to me, actually I put it in the issues list for the get a link to that. For the second screen presentation. This was I added a note there last night. Let's see. So my first interest is the privacy issues, because I think there's so there's maybe 2 privacy footprint exposure issues for this group, and one of them is shared with second screen, which is about a privacy exposure footprint to the local network that is controlled by a website that you visit, right? So you go there, it uses your APIs to do something on your local network, and I'm not sure if there's a threat model that comes from exposing information to your local network that's controlled by the website. And so I wanted to pick their brains a bit about whether they've encountered any abuses with their API, and whether they've examined any of the threat models there, if that makes sense. This was one of the things raised in the NetDev thread, that that there is a different privacy footprint in the exposure to the network of your local activity than you get with TLS, and so this exposure footprint is an area of concern, and there's questions about how abusable it might be. The other related issue for multicast in general, especially for the sort of not just within the LAN multicast that you use for discovery, would be that the exposure of a join to the propagating network is also necessary in some sense. The network will know that it's forwarding traffic. At the last hop router, it will know where it's forwarding subscribed streams. And there's another separate issue about exposure footprint for there that is not really something that the second screen group would have hit. but exposure from discovery protocols within the network that's controlled by the website is one of the sort of open issues for whether it's going to be a blocker, and if so, of what form, or whether it would just sort of add constraints into what can be done in the multicast group.
Didn't Apple have some thing in the last month or so to do with blocking multicast in their app store due to being able to use it to fingerprint the local network?
Yeah, so it wasn't. Yes, good point. I looked at that. I wasn't sure what to think of it at first, but I think it actually might be helpful towards this concern, because it means that at least on that platform, those platforms, the developer, there's a mechanism by which to shut it off if it gets abused. So the idea is that well-behaved developers will register their usage and what it's for, and then if they're caught misbehaving in some way, then it's not just that there's no answer. Their app can be sort of shut off and not have that capability, and prevented from using that capability anymore. So I'm not sure whether that's a thing that would ever happen on some of the other platforms. You're sort of, I don't know what it would do on Windows to make that happen, for example, or Linux, or Android even. But yeah, it's an interesting take on things, and I think it tends to help address concerns about that problem. Although I don't think it's necessarily a full solution. But you might see similar things at the OS layer, where untrusted apps could be blocked by the OS if they haven't gone and sort of requested permissions in some form, I expect.
Yeah, so that sounds really positive. I know that in the second screen group, there has been a quite a bit of thought put into the protocol design and the layering in terms of what information gets exposed at what level, and the establishment of the security connection, and yeah, so I think. Yeah, I think you should be able to have a useful discussion actually about I mean, obviously the details will differ, but like the principles that they're applying could well be helpful.
Yeah, I think it might be. So sort of leveraging their experience with that work is the first thing I had in mind. The second thing I had in mind that I put in that comment is that I can imagine, excuse me, not used to talking that much. I can imagine that there's potentially someone is interested in using multicast, like subscribing to the same multicast stream from two different screens, so that you can, or multiple different screens, so that you can have sort of synchronized playback that doesn't have to necessarily traverse the local network. If that's the intent, then I put in a comment to try to address that, because multicast has some restrictions over Wi-Fi. That's going to be in RFC 9119, which is supposed to be published any moment now. It's in the Auth 48. But I put links in that GitHub comment, hoping to sort of, if anybody does have that in mind, then I don't know what the strategy will be for handling the sort of Wi-Fi constraints and whether that will make it sort of a non-starter in the end. But that's kind of my expectation. Without, unless there's a sort of credible way to work with that. So I'll see what people say about it if they're trying to explore it in that direction, but I tend to doubt that it's going to be fruitful, unless you have a lot of devices on a LAN. Then it might start to make sense. You could imagine, like in a well, I guess like in a bar environment, they'll usually be networked, right? Or they'll usually be wired. I mean, and wired, you would potentially be able to do that. But you can imagine like 50 screens all showing the same thing. They could be maybe usefully subscribed to the same multicast stream, even in Wi-Fi, because it would use less airtime than trying to do it unicast from some central location or between each other peer to peer. So that's the only two pieces of overlap I thought of for the second screen group. But I am hoping to poach some of their members and get them into interested in multicast also.
I think in that case they would also have to be able to publish, right? Because I think that they're also publishing from the browser to other devices. Is that something that you're considering right now, or is it only the read side of things for the time being?
Yeah, for multicast, it's going to be hard enough to do receive only. The proposed API is receive only. Now it I don't want to put a nail in that coffin of it might be possible to coordinate two streams to both subscribe to the same multicast stream from outside, and for that to end up being worthwhile. But I think there's going to have to be some like you probably won't get gains if that's happening over Wi-Fi is my only caveat there. So if it's happening in a wired network or potentially in a cell network, then that might end up being worthwhile. But on a Wi-Fi network, there's unless maybe Wi-Fi 7 does a better job with multicast, it might end up being ugly. Or the other case is if you have enough screens. If you have enough screens, then there still might be gains doing it that way over Wi-Fi also. But yeah, that seemed like the sort of obvious potential piece of overlap. But yeah, because we're not publishing from the client, like it would be this is like why UDP sockets were turned off. You can use them to drive a DOS attack or something. So you can't just give control over web pages, give control to web pages to send out traffic without without rate controls that have some feedback channel. Yeah. So we're looking at the multicast APIs as receive only, probably forever. There's also authentication stuff that's hard to do otherwise. Although I guess the authentication is probably equally hard for 4-second screen, but limiting it to the LAN, might help with that.
So, I can imagine a case in the future where somebody has a brilliant idea to use multicast to do video conferencing, like a direct user-to-user sort of thing. But you'd be sending to a multicast group, and if no one subscribed to it, then packets aren't going to get very far. So I could maybe see a case for allowing UDP packets to be sent to a group, to multicast group address only. But even then, there would have to be some sort of protection against, using it to send to some, I don't know. I mean, like for SSM, right? You'd have to make sure that you're not able to spoof a source address or something like that, right? But
You're saying on LAN? SSM?
no, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that you don't want somebody's browser to be able to spoof, to be able to inject packets into somebody else's multicast.
I don't think that would. Yeah, that would be beyond the browser's capability, I think.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, unless can you make a case for getting raw sockets into the browser? Just kidding.
Yeah.
But no, anyway, I'm just saying, like, it may not be forever. That it might just be certain
in the future.
Well, I mean, it might be that there are certain cases that can be made safe. But receiver only right now seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I'll say that's probably out of scope for this group. And some of the expertise may carry over, in the future, but yeah, specialized things to do discovery of local things. This makes some sense, and it uses outbound multicast, but that's not what we're doing here. Right. Did I have any takeaways from that? I guess anybody have anything to add to those two insights? See anything I'm missing?
Well, I take Carl's point that UDP, just allowing outbound UDP unicast, is obviously quite a risk. But outbound UDP multicast is not a similar risk at all, as it is going to be dropped by the switch or the first hop router. There's no way you can do an amplification attack using multicast in that way. The two are just not similar. I think we might be protecting against a threat that's not there, in the same way that the TTL for multicast is by default set to 1 when there's really no reason for it to be. If there was any risk, I would love there to have been a risk. It would mean that multicast worked on the internet, and we wouldn't be sitting here now having this meeting. If TTL1 was necessary, we wouldn't all be here now, but it found its way into an RFC because somebody was thinking unicast when they wrote it. And I think we're in danger of doing the same thing here by saying that this would be read-only. Read-only works very well if you're only thinking about streaming and you're only thinking about video. But if we take something, even a very simple application, and we forget about video conferencing for a minute, and we just say, well, let's just have chat. Let's just build a chat application, which is what I've been doing, over multicast. You need to read and write.
Right, and that's exactly the use case I was thinking of. Is instead of having a hub and spoke model like WebEx, where you send video to the hub and then it sends it to everybody, you just send your stream to everyone who's watching. I mean, I could certainly like that. That just seems like a perfectly natural use case.
And there is some problems with that though, because it opens up a whole bunch of things, like ad networks could start creating shadow networks on your local LAN to fingerprint your network and that sort of thing. So it gets very hairy very quickly. I've seen a whole bunch of people trying to do initiatives in the past with this sort of thing that all failed. So I think Jake's probably right in keeping it to read only for the time being, just to keep out of that whole area of concerns.
Right, and I also agree with that. Right, I'm not suggesting that we take this on here. I'm just saying that I wouldn't. I was only taking issue with Jake saying probably never, because there might be a way that you could make it safe. Sorry, I apologize if I'm being pedantic, Jake.
Fair
So,
point. I shouldn't say never. Things, many things can happen in the future. But yeah, that is not our present focus. I'll just say.
So yeah, I mean, I'll just very quickly mention that I tried to generalize what the second screen group has been doing, and try to bring their protocols into a generic web API. And I made a small suggestion for that on the community group. What is it called again? The WICG around that. So if you're interested, Kyle, you may look at that. But I'll leave it at that because it's obviously out of scope of this session.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that thread. Certainly, this sounds like the kind of thing I want to see where the bombs are. So if you could at least send that to me, maybe send it to the public multicast W3 list if you could.
Okay, sure. I don't know if there's a chat thing in here. Hi here. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Cool. Thank you. All right, where were we? We should be almost wrapping up here. So let's see. Any, I guess, interest in the hackathon, perhaps? I was pleased to see that Lenny landed on, one of the things that was on our list from previous meetings. Like we could try receiving the VLC stuff in and passing it into Web Codex and see what happens. So it looks like we'll get a chance to try that. Has anybody done that before? Worked with Web Codex and any? No. Okay.
what is the what are the since I haven't been doing any hackathon stuff since the before times, what is the structure of them now?
It's similar but remote.
Okay.
So it'll be, a champion registers it in the wiki page and sends a notice to hackathon@itf.org. You get together with your group over.
Well, I mean, is it still like the weekend before the meeting, or is it?
I think they moved. I think they made it the week before, so that
Okay.
people are just going to sort of, and within the group you can sort of structure it however you want. At the end of the meeting, I think they have a similar sort of 3-minute lightning talks to tell what your group did and how it went, that people can participate in. So. Yeah, so basically, no rules about what you work on, no requirement to present. You just sort of say that you're going to be working on stuff and hope that you'll get an extra person or two besides the people that were already on the project. You know. So yeah, anyway, we'll be working on that. I'll send an update if we get anything or if we find anything out. But I'm hopeful that'll be a little bit useful. It's not the direction that we'll want to be with the quick work, but it might be a relevant use case for the datagrams if we can add that in afterwards. Like the vision I've got there is that you can have existing UDP multicast capable things like VLC, and you can just stick something in the front where you're sending stuff and have it sort of encode whatever UDP packets were sent. And as long as they're, you know, within the right constraints, maybe you can't do it over a certain size or something that's a little bit smaller than your, you know, normal UDP packet size. But then outside that, you can turn that into a quick UDP datagram and, you know, build the authentication hash and send that through your Ambi kind of stream, and get it delivered to a browser, and then unpacked and handled in whatever way is appropriate for that data stream. And from the browser point of view, it will look the same as the current API that just sort of takes a raw UDP payload and hands it off to the API. But it will have the quick part built around it. So I think applications that do this will have the same kind of workflow, and it opens the door to anything that already existed, as long as it can be made, you know, sort of sane in terms of performance, which is which probably does need some work. I don't know if it'll happen, but we probably need to batch those datagrams in the end when we deliver them to the API, and maybe avoid copying them or something. Right now, there's a lot of CPU utilization on when you're trying to play a video in the demo browser, but yeah, I guess that's all sort of TBD, and one of the reasons I'll want to be looking into the datagram. But I think first things, once we get to the quick, we'll be putting it in the XHR. I think that's where it goes. I should probably dig on that a little further and make sure, but okay.
One question I maybe had is currently the API that you have in the JavaScript side of things is around the readable stream, as far as I see. Are you also thinking about basically direct handover to some of the media devices API, so that you can, you know, very easily paint to a canvas or to a video element, something like that? Because you seem to be talking mostly about media related use cases.
It's a good question. That was another kind of suggestion in the NetDev Chromium thread, was that maybe we should look into more specific use cases.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm advocating for both, not for just dumbing it down and only providing media devices.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we said in the charter, as I recall, that these other, like doing something targeted to a specific thing would be fine. It's just in our priority
you
order.
need to have the foundation first before play.
Yeah. So we were aiming at web transport first. We listed a bunch of other APIs that we know might be relevant. With MSE, I think as long as you're building segments, then you just pass them in. So I'm not sure it needs to go directly into MSE itself, as opposed to generic transport of an HTTP object in some sense.
So one of the things that's coming up in MSE is a web codex interface. So you could go multicast reception through to web codecs into MSE, and so that then gives you the buffering capability that MSE provides. Whereas if you were using primarily, or if you were using just web codecs, then you would either have to render immediately or build your own application level buffering of the video frames.
So that seems useful too. Certainly. And that would open up sort of a streaming thing. So you're not talking about HTTP objects, you're talking about a stream of data in some sense. which seems like a great idea. I would like to avoid cutting out things like chat for our first cut stuff, and that's why I would like to still keep I think it would be okay to still make that transport of HTTP objects is my sort of expectation for that use case at least. But yeah, I think datagrams is also handy. And that seems like if MSE is accepting a sort of web codex input, then yeah, that might make the that I don't suppose you know very much about whether web codecs can do sort of unreliable transport based datagrams. Like how does it handle that kind of thing? Because this is one of the areas I've been really unsure how it's going to work. I guess we'll find out.
I do not know the answer to that offhand.
We might want to talk to some of the WebRTC people because I know that their SRTP transport is also unreliable.
Yeah.
But I don't know the details of how it's handled in the browser.
Yeah, for RTP, I know you get like some sequence numbers and stuff. So you can probably put it back in order before you try and handle it. Anyway, yeah, as we saw with Kyle, I think it's just about time. We are slightly over. All right. Thank you for a good discussion and for digging in on this. Any parting words? Anything I've forgotten that I should know about? Volunteers to I don't know, speak or write something. Not to worry, we'll get there. All right, then I will wrap that up, and thank you very much.
All right, thanks everyone.